I've got some good news for Celtics fans that Neemias Queta is proving himself this summer, and for a guy that's going to be thrust into the Celtics starting lineup, that's the best news possible. Neem is currently over in Europe with Portugal playing at the FIBA EuroBasket. He's led them through to the knockout stages. He's played 5 games so far, averaging 18.6 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks per game. For a player who's about to take a leap from a guy that was fourth string center last year behind Al, Kristaps, and Luke Cornett, and he's now going to be jumping into that starting role following a bunch of moves this summer. These numbers are 100% an encouraging sign. Not only is Nimi balling out, he's doing it as a primary option for Portugal against some decent competition. Not great, but he's played against Kristaps Porzingis being one of the better big men he's played against this summer. There's no doubt in my mind that Nimi is a solid prospect. Great motor, great size, and shown drastic improvements with his screening, his roll timing, and his spatial awareness on both sides of the floor, to be fair, although on offense it has been more prevalent than what we've seen on defense. Defensively, as anyone that's watching the EuroBasket right now has seen, Nimi's length is a big, big tool. He's able to close down guys in the rear view and get those swats. He's great at timing his rotations from weak side. His size is a good rim deterrent. But most importantly, he's got that bounce. So if he does get beat off the dribble or if he does get beat on closeouts, he's able to close space with his athleticism the same way we used to see Robert Williams do so. So he can still get back into a possession and provide some rim protection, even from a bad position. And we've seen him do that for Portugal recently. And we also saw him do that at times for the Celtics last season. However, obviously, there are still some concerns. He has a tendency to bite on up fakes. He's a little bit of a foul machine. His positioning can be questionable at times on both sides. Sometimes I feel like he's allowing himself to get dragged into a position where an offense can take advantage of him. But these are all things you can work on. Nimi has earned a shot at being the Celtics starter this year. And with them in a retooling phase, there's no better time for him to be able to have a longer leash, play through mistakes, and learn on the fly. And he's doing everything he can right now to put himself in that window to show Joe Mazzulla that, yo, I'm ready to be the Celtics starting five next season. And look, I'm aware that Nimi last year and previous years spent time on the floor with some of the Celtics' better dudes, but this year they're not going to be there. Tatum's out with an Achilles injury. Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, they've all gone. They've all been traded elsewhere in the league. And that led me to start thinking, like, how many possessions last season, if any, did Nimi play without those four dudes in the rotation? How many possessions did he have without being next to a Luke Cornett, without being next to five dudes, technically, sorry, without being next to some of these guys? And the truth is not many, but enough that we had some data to have a look at. So I went over to Cleaning the Glass. If anyone uses Cleaning the Glass, you'll know that there's a garbage time filter there. Cool, that actually helps. It gives us some more solid data where teams haven't taken their foot off the gas. There's still something left to play for. So I went through and I added the filters. It spat back out 419 possessions without those. During those 419 possessions, the Celtics were plus 7 points per 100. So for every 100 of those 400 possessions, the Celtics were winning by 7 points. The problem is, during those same 419 possessions, the defense nosedived. It was ranked 45th in the NBA. For those specific possessions, obviously, allowing 115.7 points per 100. The primary five during that during the biggest amount of those minutes, like the primary starting lineup during those minutes, was Pritchard, White, Brown, Hauser, and Nimi, which ironically could be the starting five we see on opening night and could be the primary starting five we see throughout the year. A lot of talk on Nimi on Pritchard and Anthony Simons and whether who's going to start there. And that's a video for another day. But at least now we kind of know that, hey, Nimi can be viable there. And just for reference, that five there played 100 possessions together. So it's not exactly a big amount of data. In fact, it's a very minimal amount of data. But it's just enough for us to get a tangible sample size, because stats and advanced stats specifically start looking at possession data from 100 possessions. So we know that at least with that group, Neemi will be a positive on the floor. If we throw our eyes back to Europe for a moment, we can see Neemi playing in a bigger role. He's playing as arguably a primary option for Portugal. They're running a lot of stuff through him. They're running a lot of their offense is going through Neemi, and they're funneling a lot of defense towards him at the rim. And while that won't be the case in Boston, it's definitely forcing him to expand his game. So the Neemi that played in those 419 possessions last season isn't going to be the Neemi that we see to start this year, and definitely won't be the Neemi that we see at the end of the upcoming season, because the hope is that he continues to progress. The hope is that his time in Europe right now, playing against some high-level competition in a knockout scenario, is going to force some development heading into training camp. And the good thing is, as I mentioned a moment ago, with Neemi going into the starting five and with the Celtics being in a retooling phase, Neemi is going to have opportunity to play through some mistakes. There is going to be a longer leash. However, it's not going to be all easy. He's going to have guys breathing down his neck. You've got competition from Luka Garza, who's a new addition that has something to prove after struggling to earn minutes in Minnesota. You've got Chris Boucher, who's a veteran that can play at the 4 or the 5. You'll go small with him at the 5, but he can space the floor. And you've got Xavier Tillman. Again, I don't see him as a 5, but he can play there. All of those dudes need minutes. All of those three, Garza, Tillman, and Boucher, can play the 4 and will probably spend time there. But it's definitely going to provide some competition for Neemi. And competition's a good thing, but it's also going to be interesting to see how he deals with that, especially if he gets taken out of the starting lineup for a stretch. And for me, I don't know if anyone didn't watch it, you can go and look at a video that I ran the other day where we were looking at what Luka Garza can bring to the team. And I've got a whole deep dive with this over on the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. The link's in the description if you want to read it. It's a 2-part breakdown. First part, what he brings to the offense. Second part, the defensive concerns that I have. But with Garza, the one, I wouldn't say, yeah, I'd say the one thing he has over Neemi right now is he can develop into a floor spacer. He can be a stretch 5. And depending on how Joe Mazzulla wants to run that offense this year, having that spacing 5 could be a very valuable commodity, and it could allow Garza to earn some starts this year. So if I'm Neemi, not only do I come into the season knowing that I'm probably going to be the starting 5, but I'm also going to face a battle to keep that position. Maybe now he needs to start looking at ways he can fit into the defensive system a bit more to make him more undroppable, if that's even a word. And the ways he can do this is proving himself as a weak side slot spacer on offense. What I mean by that is looking at how Luke Cornett played last season, where you put him in the weak side slot, so a defender cannot really help off him because of the vertical spacing he will offer as a lob threat on the cut, and the screening actions he can run, or the DHO action. So a defender can sag off, but they can't really help off without risking a back cut. And then on defense, you want him operating more as a weak side helper. You want him playing in quite a deep drop. If he plays up to touch, you want him being able to slide his feet and staying in front of guys, not jumping into them on fakes or allowing them to beat you on up and unders and then giving the and one. There's also other areas offensively that I think Neemi can really make improvements and really showcase his skills, and that's becoming a smarter decision maker as a role man, both when rolling to the rim, understanding how you need to mirror the ball handler, you need to provide an outlet, and when short rolling, knowing that you can swing that rock and find somebody that's shaking out the corner or sinking into the corner or coming off a pin down or whatever it may be. And if he can use the experience he's had over the last 3 seasons with the Celtics to kind of develop those aspects of his game, he's going to be really, really hard to dislodge out of that starting 5. Another key thing for me is Neemi finding ways to build partnerships. So if we look at what the Celtics are losing right now with Kristaps Porzingis leaving, yes, you're losing the spacing. Yes, you're losing the post-up scoring and the interior scoring and everything that KP brings offensively. You're losing the rim deterrence. You're losing the rim protection. But the one that sucks the most is you're losing cookies and cream. You're losing that connection he had with Jaylen Brown. You're losing a connection he had with Jason Tatum. And the way that when those guys were on the floor together, they elevated each other's game because of the way they were looking for each other, the way they were creating off of each other. Neiman needs to find a way to do that. He needs to try and develop partnerships with Jaylen Brown, with Derek White, with Anthony Simons, with Peyton Pritchard. Even if you're going to have a ball handling wing, if Jordan Walsh is going to get minutes where the ball's in his hands, which I hope to God is not the case, or if Hugo Gonzalez, again, I hope that's not the case. I'd rather them be playing more off ball. But if they're in a position where they need to create for a moment, having Nimi understand where they want to get to, where they want to throw the ball for him, and then go and get it is going to be key. And the more relationships he can build and the more partnerships he can build in terms of like two-man game, the more impactful he's going to be, and the more impactful those other guys he's building those relationships are going to be as well. If he's just going to be a system big, that's great. You'll be passable. If you start becoming a big man that can add variance to the way the offense works just because of the different two-man actions that you can float in and out of to kind of counter how a defense is playing you, especially in the half court, that's going to be take you to another level. Again, help cement you as that starting five for the season. But not only that, it's going to help your numbers, which in turn helps drive your ability to become a key part of this rotation when Brad Stevens starts re-adding new talent, which is inevitable as Tatum gets closer to coming back, and potentially proving yourself that you could be a starting five. Now, I have questions whether that's a long-term ability, like if he has an ability to do that long-term on a contending team. But building these partnerships, building your numbers, scoring stats matter in context with how the team plays. I'm not a box score guy. Like, I don't look at a box score and be like, oh, someone had a great game because the box score said so. But if you're producing across the board while also making smart decisions, anchoring down a defense, allowing an offense to evolve and flow around you and with you in it, then yeah, that's key. And the more relationships you build there, the better it's going to be. I think that, you know, Derek White and Jaylen Brown should be two guys he spends a lot of time with during training camp, just trying to build that out. And I think if you can do that, it's going to be hella important for the rest of the team. But it also means that we're going to get to see some cool lobs. And I'm always down for the lobs. I mean, I grew up in that dunk era. Now, for me, it also means that we might see a lot of get actions, a lot of DHO actions, dribble handoff actions. And I'm not saying that Neemias is about to become a Bam Adebayo or even an Al Horford in terms of being an offensive creation hub. But he's got the size that if he can run a get action, you pass the ball to him, you run and get it back, and then he screens. He's got the size to take defenders out of actions very, very quickly. And then he's got a really good nose for when to roll. And then that's when the lob threat comes in. So where does this leave us? I mean, if we look at this, we've got Neemias clearly been on an upward trajectory since he signed with the Celtics. He clearly fits. A lot of fans love him. Some are a little bit lower, but a lot of fans love him. And we've got to be honest with ourselves. I mean, last season, he was in a loaded front court. There was Porzingis, Horford, Cornette. He still managed to start 62 games. Sorry, no, he didn't. He still managed to play in 62 games. Averaged 13.9 minutes per game during those. For me, if you're finding a way to break into a front court rotation that's as stacked as it was last year, that's already a good sign. And I get that I'm kind of pinpointing him as a fourth-string big, but that's kind of the way it was. But part of that was he was just a victim of circumstance. And I've said this many times. If you follow my work or if you're new here, I'll say it again. Situation and fit are just as important to success as talent. If you're super talented, but you're in a position where the situation you're in doesn't match, they don't play a way that brings out the best in you, or you're buried in a rotation because there's a superstar in front of you, then that talent means nothing at all because you're just as talented as the next dude on the bench getting no minutes. That's how it kind of works out, right? And the way I always point at this is you can go and look at someone like Aaron Nesmith that really struggled to implement himself in Boston's rotation because he came in and joined a team and was behind a Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum and was trying to earn minutes against these dudes. He goes over to Indiana, is allowed to play through these mistakes, and he was on an NBA Finals team last season. It happens. And for Nemi, he's in a team now where that situation and fit has kind of, it was against him for a few years, and now it's kind of done a full 180, and it's going to be working for him this year. Now, I'm not saying he's as raw talented as just natural talent as somebody like Neesmith, but I'm not saying he's not either. It's just a situation and fit are just as important towards success as talent. Some less talented players will have a better career than you because they fell into a position where the situation worked for them. Now, with Neemi, the way I'm expecting the Celtics to play next season, I'm expecting them to be a bit more up-tempo. That non-stop motor that he's got is going to be a calling card. It's going to be him being able to be a complete two-way rim runner is going to be a huge value to the Celtics, especially if he can block shots, get out in transition, be one of the first up the floor, and get easy finishes around the rim. Now, we saw that for flashes last season. I mean, he had 6 games as a starter, which not exactly enough to shout home about and be like, yo, we learned everything we needed to learn about Neemi. But it's 6 games that we have a sample size from. It's 6 games more than Luka Garza could offer you. Like, we've seen a little bit of what he can do, and that's enough for me to feel like, hey, with what he's showing this summer over in Europe, maybe a bigger role is going to allow him to showcase more of what we've already seen, but also some aspects that we haven't seen yet. I mean, he hit a 3 in that first game of EuroBasket. He's shown a little bit of a mid-range game over in Europe as well. I don't want him taking those shots. I think his best value to the Celtics is within 4 feet of the basket, right around the rim. But at the same time, like if it's open and they're daring you to shoot it, I'd prefer you to be able to drain it, right? So I think that the rim running is going to be the key aspect for Neemi, but a broader skill set. I've been calling for him to add a drop step to his game for a while because he doesn't really like facing up with guys, but he posts up a bunch. So a drop step is a really good way of covering some space and getting that face up near the rim. These little tweaks, I think, that are going to help a lot, especially because these are tweaks that I'd seen during games where he started that haven't been implemented yet. I haven't really seen in Europe, but he's got the rest of the summer training camp preseason to try and add them in, depending on how Mazzulla wants to play. The problem I've got as well, just to put this out there, is one of my biggest knocks on Neemi is definitely his touch around the rim, or his lack of touch around the rim. Smokes a lot of layups, fumbles quite a few rebounds. Sometimes it just feels like he's too sped up. Sometimes it feels like he's trying to do too much. I want him to keep it a little bit more basic, be a bit more aggressive. He's got the size that if he's around the rim and he's caught an offensive rebound, don't try and lay it in if you know that you're going to put too much sauce on it. Jam that shit home. Make that rim rock and make your presence known. And then as you start to develop a softer touch, now we can start laying it in. But a bit more aggressiveness, use your physicality a bit more, add that drop step. And I think that offensively, he could be a real threat within the paint. Do I think it's going to happen all in one go? No. Would I like to see it slowly over the season? Yes. And it's not going to happen in one season either. It's going to take 1 or 2 years for him to develop those areas, if that's what the coaching staff thinks he needs to develop. This is just my opinion. What I have liked, though, over in Europe at the moment during the tournament is he's not just camping in the dunker spot. His screening has drastically improved. Before, his hips would be at or just below the level of his man. Now his hips are getting right into his guy. His body's covering a bigger surface area. He's creating better contact, taking guys out, forcing them to fight through more, fight over more. That's been a huge help to him in just being able to create space for himself when rolling to the rim as well, create space for others. I think that we're starting to see him lean into his lob threat a little bit more as well, so that vertical spacing's coming in. That's a lot to do with positional IQ. Again, things that you get through reps, things that you get through a role that's big enough to allow you to feel out how a defense is playing you and learn how to manipulate that throughout the 48 minutes of a game or however long you get. If you're only getting 10 minutes a game and you're barely getting a touch of the ball, it's very hard for you to figure out how to manipulate your defender, how to manipulate the scheme. I think in Europe, he's being afforded a bigger role, so it's allowing him to kind of act a bit more cerebral with the way he looks to manipulate everything around him. And that's encouraging considering he's about to get a very similar sized role in terms of minutes, not usage, over in Boston. So that to me has been huge. And look, I'm not saying he needs to be Clint Capella this season. And I use Clint Capella because he's a prototypical rim runner. What I am saying is if he can be steady not even great, not even good, just steady, and show steady improvement throughout the year and steady production along the way. He's not going to be great every game. There's going to be some stinkers, but if he can just stay steady, force defenses to respect the roll gravity, force them to respect the lob threat, force them to respect him when he's in the weak side slot because he can do things other than just run to the rim. And what on the flip side, also make them respect the defensive presence he offers, not just see him as somebody you can exploit for easy shots at the line. If he can do that steadily throughout the year and slowly build that reputation, he's going to be a huge plus for this team, whether it's as a starter or coming off the bench for years to come. Years and years and years. Now, look, I'm not sugarcoating it. I've still got concerns. I've touched on a few of them. I think that when you look at his tendency to bite on fakes, that touch around the rim, the way he allows himself to be manipulated into giving up fouls, those are real concerns. But as a retooling team, the point is you take guys with these minor issues and you try and smooth the edges while refining all of the stuff that's good. And that's exactly where we are with Neemias. We've seen him slowly develop, slowly over the last few years, and now it's time for him to show that he can hang. And I think that the concerns are so minimal versus what he does well that there's reason to be excited. I don't think it's at a point where we need to be scared and be like, oh my God, this is an issue. Because look, the front court this year is rough. Nobody on that front court is somebody that we would have looked at a year ago and been like, oh, imagine if we added this guy to this rotation for the depth. Nobody, maybe Boucher, you could have said that for, but I'd argue against you quite strongly considering where the team was last year. So because there's not as much depth and because this is a retooling team, Neemias actually looks like a really exciting prospect. Again, situation and fit go both ways. If we were in this situation last season, we would never have said as much about Neemias. I wouldn't have even been recording 15, 20, 25-minute episode just on him because there was so many other more talented dudes to focus on. But that situation right now puts us where we're at. And I do think that he could be highly valuable, not just this year, but moving forward. And I've got two things for him to kind of focus on just starting the season, just to start the season and try and add some discipline that way. And the first one is to, again, stay disciplined on defense. Not just don't bite, but also stick to your remit in terms of your positioning on the floor. If you're playing in drop, don't get pulled out onto the wing because now you're completely out of the way. If you are playing in drop and you're up to touch on a screener, make sure you shuttle back. You're trying to contain. You're not trying to jump out and switch or show. Make sure you keep everyone in front of you. Make sure the rim is behind you and you're using your size to eat up as much space as possible. And the second is to maximize that chemistry, as we spent minutes on earlier. Just building those partnerships, getting yourself in a position where you're elevating those around you and in return they're elevating you. If he can do those two things to begin the season and then allow everything else to build out and flourish after, he's going to be sad. He's going to be in such a good position for himself, and the Celtics are going to be in a good position too. And look, there's a blueprint here. It's not like this is the first big man we're asking the Celtics to develop. You only need to look at what Luke Cornett did and how he developed year on year and how he earned himself a big payday over in San Antonio to know the blueprints there, the development staff, the coaching staff, the player development, they're all proven commodities in Boston. The whole organization, top to bottom, really knows how to develop guys. So with Neemias getting those extra minutes, that development to me feels like it's inevitable. And that's why I'm quite excited. And I think that for me right now is why I'm looking at Neemias as a potential success story of this season. I think there's going to be a couple of them. I don't think Neemias will be the only guy there. And I'll save my predictions there for another day. But I think that Neemias will be one of the bigger success stories from a Celtics perspective of this season. Not because we didn't have faith that he would be able to do well, but because he exceeded those expectations quite dramatically. He's kind of where I'm at with this. And then for me, if that happens, this has been a good retooling year, assuming a couple of other guys take a jump. And we can obviously discuss whether or not a postseason run would be worthwhile at a later date. But now I'm curious whether you're all in on Nemi as well, whether you're concerned, whether you agree, whether you disagree. That's what the comment section is for. Obviously, I'll be writing about some of this stuff as well throughout the week. So make sure you head on over to CelticsChronicle.com. Make sure you show some love over there. Sign up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, do all that good shit. And I'll be back again later in the week. Deuces.